In an era where global challenges, human rights violations, geopolitical tensions, environmental crises dominate headlines, isn't it remarkable how journalism can serve as a beacon of hope? Imagine, amidst chaos, there exists a medium capable of amplifying voices of peace, compassion, and justice. One such moment occurred when CNN journalist Anderson Cooper interviewed His Holiness the Dalai Lama on issues of human rights and world peace. Can you feel the weight of this encounter? Two giants from vastly different worlds, journalism and spirituality, came together, not just to converse, but to remind humanity of its interconnectedness. This essay delves deeply into the context, significance, and implications of this interview, exploring its historical, cultural, and philosophical dimensions. But let me ask you this: what does it mean to truly connect across boundaries? How can we, as individuals, carry forward the lessons of such dialogues into our daily lives? When Anderson Cooper sat down with the Dalai Lama, their exchange was more than just a conversation. It was a bridge between two seemingly disparate realms. Journalism, often driven by immediacy and the pursuit of truth, met spirituality, which emphasizes patience, reflection, and inner transformation. The dialogue revealed how these two domains are not mutually exclusive, but rather complementary forces in addressing the pressing issues of our time. For instance, Cooper's incisive questioning illuminated the Dalai Lama's unwavering commitment to nonviolence and compassion, even in the face of immense adversity. This juxtaposition of inquiry and wisdom created a narrative that resonated far beyond the screen, sparking conversations in living rooms, classrooms, and boardrooms worldwide. What makes this interview particularly poignant is its timing. In a world increasingly fragmented by polarization and distrust, the Dalai Lama's message of universal responsibility strikes a chord. He reminds us that every action, no matter how small, has ripple effects that transcend borders, cultures, and ideologies. When Cooper asked about the role of forgiveness in conflict resolution, the Dalai Lama's response was both simple and profound. Forgiveness is not about forgetting or excusing harm, but about freeing oneself from the burden of anger. Such insights challenge us to rethink our own responses to personal and societal conflicts. But why does this matter to you? Because moments like these are invitations to reflect, to act, and to grow. They urge us to consider how we can embody the principles of empathy and understanding in our everyday interactions. Whether it's listening more attentively to a colleague, standing up against injustice in our communities, or simply choosing kindness over indifference, the lessons from this interview have practical applications. It's about recognizing that each of us has the power to contribute to a more compassionate world. As we unpack the layers of this historic dialogue, we'll explore how it fits into broader discussions about media's role in shaping narratives, the ethical responsibilities of journalists, and the enduring relevance of spiritual leadership in modern society. Together, we'll examine how this conversation serves as a microcosm of what's possible when we prioritize connection over division. So, I invite you to join me on this journey of exploration. Let's dive deeper into the nuances of this extraordinary interview and uncover what it means for us as individuals and as a collective. After all, isn't it through understanding and dialogue that we find the seeds of change? Anderson Cooper's journey is nothing short of inspiring. Born into privilege, he chose a path far removed from comfort, dedicating his life to uncovering truths and giving voice to the voiceless. The purpose of life is not to be happy. Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "It is to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate." Isn't that exactly what Cooper embodies? From reporting in war-torn Somalia to covering natural disasters like Hurricane Katrina, his work reflects an unwavering commitment to bearing witness to suffering and injustice. At the core of Cooper's philosophy lies a profound belief: storytelling has the power to transform society. He argues that journalists have a moral obligation to shine a light on hidden or ignored narratives, Doesn't this resonate deeply with the Dalai Lama's teachings? Both men advocate for awareness and compassion as tools to heal societal wounds. By interviewing the Dalai Lama, Cooper didn't just bridge two worlds. He created a space for reflection. Do we see ourselves as part of a larger whole? He seems to ask us. Or are we trapped in our individual silos? Cooper's decision to engage with spiritual leaders like the Dalai Lama speaks volumes about his vision for journalism. In a world often obsessed with sensationalism, he dares to explore deeper truths. What is the role of media, if not to elevate the human spirit? One might wonder. Through his empathetic yet incisive interviewing style, Cooper invites viewers to think critically about their roles in creating a more just and peaceful world. But let's pause and reflect. Why does Cooper's approach matter so much today? In an age of misinformation and polarization, his commitment to balanced storytelling serves as a reminder of journalism's noblest ideals. Truth is the first casualty of war, wrote Aeschylus. Yet, Cooper insists on seeking truth, even when it's inconvenient or uncomfortable. Isn't that what makes him a trusted figure in both mainstream media and intellectual circles? To truly understand Cooper's impact, we must consider how his personal experiences shape his professional ethos. Growing up in a family synonymous with wealth and influence, he could have easily chosen a life of ease. Instead, he gravitated toward the raw, unfiltered realities of the world, driven by an insatiable curiosity about human nature. His early career choices, working in conflict zones, embedding himself in communities ravaged by poverty and disaster, reveal a man unafraid to confront discomfort. This willingness to immerse himself in challenging environments allows him to report with authenticity and depth, qualities that resonate deeply with audiences. Moreover, Cooper's ability to balance empathy with objectivity sets him apart. While many journalists focus solely on facts, he delves into the emotional undercurrents of stories, reminding us that behind every statistic is a human face. When he covered the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, for example, his reports weren't just about the destruction. They were about resilience, loss, and hope. This nuanced approach mirrors the Dalai Lama's emphasis on seeing humanity in its full complexity, not as abstract concepts, but as lived experiences. His interviews often transcend traditional boundaries, inviting viewers to engage with perspectives they might otherwise overlook. Whether speaking with survivors of genocide or leaders advocating for systemic change, Cooper's questions are never superficial. They probe, challenge, and inspire introspection. In doing so, he transforms journalism from a passive act of information sharing into an active dialogue about values, ethics, and responsibility. And yet, Cooper's humility is perhaps his most defining trait. Despite his prominence, he rarely positions himself at the center of the narrative. Instead, he acts as a conduit, amplifying voices that might otherwise go unheard. This self-effacing approach aligns seamlessly with the Dalai Lama's teachings on interconnectedness and service. Together, their collaboration becomes more than an interview. It becomes a testament to the power of shared humanity. So, why does Anderson Cooper stand out in today's media landscape? Because he reminds us of what journalism can and should be: a force for connection, understanding, and transformation. In a world increasingly divided by fear and misunderstanding, his work serves as a beacon, a call to look beyond ourselves and recognize the threads that bind us all. Tenzin Gyatso, the 14th Dalai Lama, carries within him the wisdom of centuries. Born in a small village in Tibet, he became a symbol of resilience after fleeing his homeland during the Chinese invasion. Yet, despite unimaginable hardships, he remained steadfast in his commitment to nonviolence and dialogue. "Peace begins with a smile," Mother Teresa famously said. And isn't that the essence of the Dalai Lama's message? His advocacy for universal responsibility reminds us that every action, no matter how small, ripples outward to affect the world. Consider this. What if we all embrace the idea that personal happiness is intrinsically linked to collective well-being? The Dalai Lama teaches us that inner transformation is the foundation of external harmony. If you want others to be happy, practice compassion. He often says, if you want to be happy, practice compassion. Simple yet profound, isn't it? These words challenge us to look inward before pointing fingers outward. They invite us to reflect on how our thoughts, actions, and intentions shape not only our own lives, but also the lives of those around us. In a world obsessed with quick fixes and external solutions, the Dalai Lama's emphasis on cultivating inner peace feels revolutionary. His legacy extends beyond Tibetan issues. As a Nobel laureate and global icon of peace, the Dalai Lama promotes values such as forgiveness, interfaith harmony, and mindfulness. We are visitors on this planet. He reminds us, we are here for 90 or 100 years at the very most. During that period, we must try to do something good, something useful, with our lives. Doesn't this perspective shift our focus from material success to meaningful contribution? It challenges the modern obsession with accumulation of wealth, power, and status, and instead asks us to consider what truly matters: kindness, connection, and purpose. Yet, the Dalai Lama's message is not without its critics. Some accuse him of being too idealistic or naive in the face of realpolitik. Others question whether his calls for nonviolence are practical in a world rife with conflict. But here's the thing. Isn't idealism sometimes necessary to inspire change? You may say I'm a dreamer, John Lennon sang, but I'm not the only one. Perhaps the Dalai Lama's dreams are precisely what the world needs to awaken from its slumber. After all, history has shown us that some of humanity's greatest achievements began as seemingly impossible ideals. The abolition of slavery, the end of apartheid, and the advancement of civil rights were once dismissed as utopian fantasies. Yet, they became realities because individuals dared to believe in a better future. What makes the Dalai Lama's vision so compelling is its universality. He doesn't preach exclusivity or dogma. Instead, he emphasizes shared human values. Whether speaking to Buddhists, Christians, Muslims, or atheists, his message transcends religious and cultural boundaries. This inclusivity is particularly vital in an increasingly interconnected yet divided world. By fostering interfaith dialogue and encouraging mutual respect, he demonstrates that diversity need not lead to division. It can be a source of strength and enrichment. Moreover, the Dalai Lama's teachings resonate deeply in the context of environmental crises. When he speaks of universal responsibility, he isn't just referring to human relationships. He's also addressing our relationship with the planet. The Earth does not belong to us, he says. We belong to the Earth. This perspective reframes environmental stewardship not as an obligation, but as a moral imperative, a way of honoring the interconnected web of life. In doing so, he aligns spiritual principles with scientific urgency, offering a holistic approach to tackling climate change and ecological degradation. And yet, perhaps the most remarkable aspect of the Dalai Lama's leadership is his humility. Despite being revered by millions, he consistently refers to himself as a simple monk. This groundedness allows him to connect with people from all walks of life, from heads of state to ordinary citizens. It also underscores a fundamental truth. True leadership isn't about wielding power. It's about serving others. By embodying this principle, the Dalai Lama becomes more than a spiritual leader. He becomes a living example of the values he espouses. So, why does the Dalai Lama continue to inspire millions across the globe? Because he reminds us of our shared humanity. In a world often driven by fear, greed, and division, his unwavering commitment to compassion, forgiveness, and hope serves as a guiding light. He challenges us to rise above our differences and recognize the beauty of our interconnectedness. And in doing so, he offers not just a path to peace, but a blueprint for a more harmonious and sustainable future. During the interview, the Dalai Lama likely addressed the ongoing struggle for Tibetan self-determination under Chinese rule. Reports of human rights abuses, restrictions on religious freedom, forced assimilation policies, mass surveillance are heart-wrenching. But here's the question. Why should this matter to someone sitting thousands of miles away? Because, as Martin Luther King Jr. so eloquently put it, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. The plight of Tibet serves as a microcosm of broader global struggles against oppression and authoritarianism. When we remain silent in the face of such injustices, we inadvertently perpetuate systems that devalue human dignity. The Dalai Lama's call to action isn't just about Tibet. It's about recognizing our role in a global community where every voice matters. Yet, the discussion wasn't limited to Tibet alone. The Dalai Lama expanded the conversation to broader issues: poverty, inequality, discrimination. He framed human rights as a shared responsibility, urging audiences to move beyond apathy. Are we merely spectators in this theater of life? He seems to ask. Or are we active participants in shaping its outcome? This framing challenges us to reconsider how we engage with the world. Human rights violations often feel distant or abstract, relegated to headlines or statistics. But behind each statistic is a story. A person yearning for freedom, safety, and respect. By amplifying these stories, the Dalai Lama reminds us that change begins with awareness. It starts when we refuse to look away, when we choose empathy over indifference. On the theme of world peace, the Dalai Lama offered a refreshing perspective. Unlike traditional approaches focused on diplomacy or military deterrence, he emphasized the need for inner peace. Conflicts arise from ignorance, fear, and attachment, qualities that education, mindfulness, and ethical living can mitigate. Can we imagine a world where peace is cultivated from within? He challenges us. It's a vision worth striving for, isn't it? His approach flips conventional wisdom on its head. Instead of viewing peace as something negotiated between nations, he sees it as an internal state that radiates outward. This idea resonates deeply in a world where external solutions often fall short. For instance, treaties and ceasefires may temporarily halt violence, but without addressing the root causes, hatred, greed, and misunderstanding, true peace remains elusive. The Dalai Lama's emphasis on inner transformation also invites us to reflect on our own lives. How often do we react out of anger or fear, perpetuating cycles of conflict in our relationships and communities? By cultivating qualities like patience, compassion, and self-awareness, we can break these cycles. Imagine a society where individuals prioritize emotional intelligence over aggression, dialogue over division. Such a shift would not only transform personal interactions, but also lay the groundwork for systemic change. After all, societies are made up of individuals. If enough people commit to fostering inner peace, the collective impact could be profound. Moreover, the Dalai Lama's vision of peace extends beyond humanity to include our relationship with the planet. Environmental destruction, he argues, stems from the same roots as human conflict: greed, short-sightedness, and disconnection. When we view nature as separate from ourselves, we exploit it without considering the consequences. But when we recognize our interdependence with the earth, we begin to treat it with the reverence it deserves. This holistic understanding of peace, as encompassing both social harmony and ecological balance, is particularly relevant in an era of climate crises and biodiversity loss. It calls for a reimagining of what peace truly means. Not just the absence of war, but the presence of justice, sustainability, and mutual care. Ultimately, the themes explored in this interview challenge us to think bigger and deeper. They remind us that human rights and world peace are not abstract ideals reserved for policymakers or activists. They are responsibilities we all share, whether through small acts of kindness, advocating for marginalized voices, or committing to personal growth. Each of us has the power to contribute to a more just and peaceful world. The Dalai Lama's words serve as both a mirror and a map. They reflect our current realities while pointing the way toward a brighter future. And perhaps that's the most powerful takeaway, that the seeds of change lie within us, waiting to be nurtured. CNN, as one of the largest news networks in the world, plays a pivotal role in shaping public opinion. By hosting interviews like this, the network provides a platform for ideas that might otherwise go unheard. But let's pause and reflect. Is media fulfilling its true potential? While platforms like CNN have the power to drive positive change, they also face criticism for biases and oversimplification. The challenge lies in striking a delicate balance between informing audiences and avoiding sensationalism, between amplifying marginalized voices and maintaining journalistic integrity. When done right, media becomes more than a source of information. It transforms into a catalyst for dialogue, understanding, and action. Here's my take. Journalists like Anderson Cooper must remain vigilant in their pursuit of balanced storytelling. By engaging with diverse sources and presenting multiple viewpoints, they can ensure that no voice is marginalized. After all, isn't diversity the very essence of humanity? In an era where echo chambers and filter bubbles dominate digital spaces, traditional media outlets like CNN have a unique opportunity and responsibility to bridge divides. They can introduce audiences to perspectives they might never encounter on their own, fostering empathy and broadening horizons. For instance, when Cooper interviews someone like the Dalai Lama, he doesn't just share his words with millions, he invites viewers to step into a worldview rooted in compassion and interconnectedness. This act of exposure has the power to shift mindsets and inspire meaningful conversations. Moreover, high-profile interviews can influence policymakers and institutions. By drawing attention to specific issues, they generate pressure for reform and accountability. Consider how global awareness of human rights abuses often leads to international sanctions, diplomatic negotiations, or grassroots movements demanding justice. Media serves as both a spotlight and a megaphone, ensuring that critical issues don't fade into obscurity. However, the responsibility doesn't end there. Journalists must also hold themselves accountable, asking tough questions about whose stories are being told and whose are being ignored. Are they amplifying voices from the global South as much as those from the West? Are they giving equal weight to indigenous leaders, women, and other underrepresented groups? These considerations are essential if media is to live up to its promise as a force for equity and justice. And yet, the impact of media extends beyond policy and politics. It shapes culture, values, and collective imagination. Stories have the power to normalize certain behaviors while challenging others. When CNN highlights themes like forgiveness, nonviolence, and universal responsibility, as it did during Cooper's interview with the Dalai Lama, it contributes to a larger narrative about what kind of world we want to create. This is where media's role becomes transformative. By consistently elevating voices that champion peace, compassion, and resilience, networks like CNN can help redefine societal priorities. Instead of glorifying conflict or division, they can celebrate unity and collaboration. Be the change that you wish to see in the world, Gandhi urged. Isn't that the ultimate takeaway? For journalists, this means not only reporting on changemakers, but embodying the principles they advocate. It means resisting the temptation to reduce complex issues to sound bites or headlines. It means recognizing that every story has ripple effects, influencing how people think, feel, and act. And for audiences, it means engaging critically with the content they consume, asking questions, seeking context, and using what they learn to contribute to positive change in their own communities. When media and audiences align in this shared mission, the possibilities for progress become limitless. One of the primary goals of interviews like this is to raise awareness. For many viewers, this conversation may have been their first exposure to the plight of Tibetans or the principles of Buddhist philosophy. The mind is everything. Buddha taught, "What you think, you become." Doesn't this quote encapsulate the transformative power of education? By shedding light on complex issues and introducing audiences to new perspectives, media platforms like CNN play a crucial role in fostering understanding. Yet, true education goes beyond passive consumption. It requires active engagement. When viewers are exposed to ideas such as universal responsibility or inner peace, they are invited not just to learn, but to reflect. How can these teachings apply to my life? How can I use them to contribute to a better world? But awareness alone is insufficient. To create meaningful change, audiences must be motivated to act. The Dalai Lama's emphasis on compassion and nonviolence serves as a call to action. What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? He seems to ask, whether through volunteering, advocacy, or simply practicing kindness, every effort matters. This message challenges us to move beyond inertia and complacency. It reminds us that even small actions, listening deeply, speaking truthfully, standing up for someone in need, can have profound ripple effects. Imagine if millions of people embrace this mindset. Collectively, we could shift cultural norms, influence policies, and create environments where peace and justice thrive. On a macro level, sustained media coverage keeps critical issues in the spotlight. For instance, the struggles of Tibet have remained visible thanks to consistent reporting. Similarly, discussions about world peace underscore the need for innovative solutions to prevent future conflicts. However, visibility is only the first step. Advocacy requires persistence, creativity, and collaboration. It demands that individuals and institutions work together to address systemic injustices and structural inequalities. Take, for example, the global movement against climate change. While media coverage has raised awareness, it's grassroots activism, policy advocacy, and corporate accountability that drive tangible progress. The same principle applies to human rights. Without sustained pressure from advocates, governments, and organizations may fail to act. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. Gandhi once said, "Isn't that the essence of advocacy? When we dedicate ourselves to causes greater than our individual interests, we discover purpose and fulfillment." Advocacy also bridges divides, uniting people across cultures, ideologies, and backgrounds around shared values. Consider how movements for racial justice, gender equality, or refugee rights bring together diverse coalitions working toward common goals. These efforts demonstrate that advocacy isn't just about addressing specific issues. It's about building communities rooted in solidarity and mutual respect. Furthermore, inspiration plays a vital role in sustaining advocacy over time. Stories of resilience, courage, and hope remind us why the fight matters. They fuel our determination when progress feels slow or obstacles seem insurmountable. The Dalai Lama himself embodies this spirit of resilience. Despite decades of exile and adversity, he continues to inspire millions with his unwavering optimism and commitment to peace. His example teaches us that advocacy isn't just about achieving immediate results. It's about planting seeds that may take years or even generations to bear fruit. And in doing so, it reinforces the idea that every contribution, no matter how small, adds to the larger tapestry of change. Ultimately, interviews like this one between Anderson Cooper and the Dalai Lama serve as reminders of what's possible. When awareness, action, and inspiration converge, they challenge us to think critically, act compassionately, and advocate boldly. In a world often overshadowed by cynicism and despair, they offer a glimpse of hope, a vision of what humanity can achieve when we come together in service of a greater good. At the heart of this interview lies a profound truth. We are all interconnected. The Dalai Lama's teachings remind us that our actions ripple outward, affecting countless lives. No man is an island. John Donne wrote, "Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main." Doesn't this resonate deeply with the the challenges we face today. In a hyper-connected world where technology has shrunk distances and blurred boundaries, the reality of interconnectedness is more evident than ever. Yet despite this awareness, humanity often struggles to act in ways that reflect this truth. We exploit resources as if they belong solely to us, neglecting the needs of future generations. We build walls, literal and metaphorical, instead of bridges. The Dalai Lama's message challenges us to confront these contradictions and recognize that what happens to one person, community, or ecosystem ultimately affects us all. Consider climate change, for example. Isn't it a stark reminder of our shared responsibility to care for the planet? Rising sea levels, deforestation, and extreme weather patterns know no borders. A wildfire in Australia impacts air quality continents away. Melting glaciers in the Arctic disrupt global ocean currents. These phenomena underscore the futility of isolationist thinking. If we fail to address environmental degradation collectively, no nation will emerge unscathed. Similarly, pandemics like COVID-19 have demonstrated how interconnected our health systems are. A virus originating in one part of the world can spread rapidly, highlighting the need for international cooperation and mutual aid. When viewed through the lens of interconnectedness, such crises cease to be distant problems. They become urgent calls to action. Or take the issue of inequality. How can we claim progress when millions still live in poverty? Economic disparities, racial injustices, and gender biases persist not because solutions don't exist, but because systemic barriers perpetuate them. Until we are all free, we are none of us free, Emma Lazarus declared. Isn't that the crux of the matter? True freedom cannot be achieved in isolation. It requires dismantling structures of oppression and ensuring equitable access to opportunities for everyone. This perspective aligns seamlessly with the Dalai Lama's emphasis on universal responsibility. He reminds us that compassion isn't just a moral ideal, it's a practical necessity. When we uplift others, we enrich ourselves. Conversely, when we ignore suffering, we diminish our shared humanity. Philosophy offers us tools to navigate these complexities. Stoicism teaches resilience. Buddhism emphasizes mindfulness. Existentialism urges authenticity. By integrating these perspectives, we can cultivate a worldview that transcends borders and ideologies. For instance, Stoicism encourages us to focus on what we can control while accepting external uncertainties, a valuable lesson in times of global turmoil. Buddhism invites us to practice mindfulness, helping us break free from cycles of fear, greed, and attachment that fuel conflict. Existentialism, meanwhile, reminds us that life's meaning is not predetermined, but shaped by our choices. Together, these philosophies provide a framework for addressing modern challenges with clarity, purpose, and courage. The only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion. Albert Camus argued, "Isn't that a powerful call to action?" Freedom, in this sense, isn't about escaping constraints. It's about transcending them through self-awareness and ethical living. When individuals commit to personal transformation, they inspire broader societal change. Imagine a world where each person strives to embody values like empathy, integrity, and accountability. Such a shift would create ripples far beyond individual lives, fostering cultures of trust, collaboration, and innovation. Ultimately, the philosophy of interconnectedness challenges us to rethink our roles within the larger web of existence. It asks us to see ourselves not as isolated beings pursuing personal gain, but as integral threads in a vast tapestry. Every choice we make, what we consume, how we treat others, whether we speak out against injustice, shapes the fabric of this tapestry. By embracing this perspective, we move closer to realizing the Dalai Lama's vision of a compassionate, harmonious world. And perhaps that's the most profound takeaway. Interconnectedness isn't just a concept. It's a call to live fully, love deeply, and act boldly in service of the greater good. Let's talk about emotions. In a world filled with noise and distractions, moments of genuine connection stand out. The interview between Cooper and the Dalai Lama was one such moment. Didn't it make you pause and reflect? Didn't it stir something deep within you? These rare, unfiltered exchanges remind us of our shared humanity, a bond that transcends geography, ideology, or circumstance. They cut through the clutter of daily life, offering clarity in moments of chaos. When Anderson Cooper asked the Dalai Lama about forgiveness or compassion, the responses weren't just intellectual insights. They were emotional touchstones, resonating with universal truths we all yearn to embrace. Human beings crave meaning. We long to belong, to contribute, to leave a mark. What will your verse be? Walt Whitman asked. Isn't that the question we all grapple with? Through stories like this, we find answers, or at least glimpses of them. The dialogue between Cooper and the Dalai Lama wasn't merely an exchange of ideas. It was an invitation to explore what it means to live a purposeful life. It challenged viewers to consider their own roles in shaping a better future. Do we seek comfort in complacency, or do we dare to act with courage and conviction? These questions linger long after the screen fades to black, urging us to confront our fears, doubts, and aspirations. Take a moment to reflect. What moves you? What inspires you? Is it the courage of activists fighting for justice? The resilience of communities rebuilding after disaster? Or perhaps the quiet kindness of strangers? Whatever it is, hold on to it. Let it guide you. Emotions are powerful motivators. They can spark revolutions or mend broken hearts. When we allow ourselves to feel deeply, we open doors to transformation. Consider how art, music, or literature often evokes emotions that words alone cannot capture. Similarly, interviews like this tap into something primal within us: the desire to connect, to understand, and to grow. They remind us that even amidst uncertainty, there is beauty in vulnerability and strength in empathy. Do small things with great love, Mother Teresa advised. Isn't that the secret to a meaningful life? Meaning isn't found in grand gestures or monumental achievements. It's woven into the fabric of everyday actions: a smile offered to a stranger, a listening ear extended to a friend, or a decision to stand up for what's right. These seemingly insignificant acts ripple outward, creating waves of change. Emotional resonance lies in recognizing the impact of these moments. It's about seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary and finding purpose in the mundane. When we approach life with intention and heart, we discover that meaning isn't something external. It's already within us, waiting to be awakened. Ultimately, the emotional power of this interview stems from its authenticity. Both Cooper and the Dalai Lama brought their full selves to the conversation. Vulnerability, wisdom, and humility included. This genuineness allowed viewers to connect on a visceral level, transcending cultural or ideological differences. It reminded us that beneath the layers of identity and experience, we share common hopes and fears. By embracing this shared emotional landscape, we not only enrich our own lives but also contribute to a collective sense of belonging. After all, isn't that what we're all searching for? A place where our hearts feel seen, heard, and valued. The interview between Anderson Cooper and the Dalai Lama represents more than just a meeting of minds. It symbolizes the convergence of journalism and spirituality in service of humanity. Through thoughtful questioning and insightful responses, both men contributed to a dialogue that transcends cultural and ideological boundaries. In a world often divided by differences, moments like this offer hope. They demonstrate the power of communication to bridge gaps, foster understanding, and inspire action. As we navigate the challenges of the 21st century, let us draw inspiration from such encounters. Let us strive to cultivate compassion and work toward a brighter future for all. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all, Helen Keller once said. So, dear reader, will you choose to be part of this daring adventure? Will you rise to meet the call of compassion and justice? The choice is yours.